Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a Conquest video for the 17th Conquest on Dark Side Ray. We're going to do an overview of the squads, some lessons learned, the feat breakdown both global and sector, the Datadisks construction, along with the choices and my thought process behind them, and then how we tackled the boss nodes. For our global feat progress, we're not going directly after any of these. We're trying to get as much incidental progress as we can on them as we work on the sector feats because there's just a ton of overlap here. You can see that we've knocked off a few now with the American Shinhati Dark Side Unaligned Force users. A lot of those are going to be handled through sectors 1 through sector 3. And then we are basically done with Night Sisters, with crit chance down. And then Galactic Republic, this we'll talk a little bit more about, but sector 4 is actually a great time to complete this feat. It just didn't occur to me because I didn't remind myself of what the global feats were as I was doing this sector. But next month, when we attempt this again, I will be much more efficient from these lessons learned. And then the rest of these feats will be completing probably during the Sector 5 video. You'll see my completion on them. For our Sector 4 progress, we were only able to complete 2 out of 4 of them, and that is basically because we have been pushing these sectors so quickly, pushing these squads so much to get as much progress through Conquest as we can for these videos, that my stamina on Night Trooper, Captain Enoch, and Shinhati is basically shot. They're pretty close to 0, at least during the morning when I was doing most of this conquest. At this point, they've probably recovered a little bit, but I think next month, when I'm not pushing as hard and we are not getting this done in 3 days, we will have a slower pace where more stamina recovers, and I'll probably be able to complete this in a single playthrough, as long as the stamina is there. But as you can see, speed down is no problem. Tons of characters do it and win 10 battles without losing any units. That's one where I was using some other squads, and I just should have been using Galactic Republic to handle that, because we did make progress on Enoch and Shinhati, but I was losing characters whenever I was working on those feats. Overviewing our optimal squad choices that we were leaning on to efficiently get through this sector, we have Sirjunda lead for the Shinhati Merrick feat, and that is because under Sirjunda lead, they're going to be a little bit more survivable. Plus, CONQUEST is going to be working towards the speed down feat with 2 abilities, with his basic and with his AoE ability, both inflicting speed down. Now, when it comes to these characters all surviving at 3 stars, it's going to depend on who you're facing. There's a number of nodes where they didn't all make it, and this is going to depend on stamina as well. My stamina here is a little deceptive because I did pick up a refresh on Shinhati. For Enoch Night Trooper, of course, I was just using an Enoch squad, and Night Trooper himself is going to be contributing a lot towards the speed down feat as well. His basic ability applies speed down. I would say if you can't invest fully into this squad, I would prioritize Captain Enoch because he can't die and come back like Night Trooper can. So Night Trooper, even if you have a weaker one, lower stars or whatever, you will have more chances and opportunities for him to stay in the battle. This was a much easier squad to get full stars on, but by the later sectors, you can see I got down to 30, or it was probably 20% when I was doing this. My Enoch was not surviving all that many below 50%. And I would note it is an option to put them under a Dark Trooper Moff Gideon lead. I would recommend against doing that, not because it wouldn't work, but because you're going to want to be using this Dark Trooper Moff Gideon squad in Sector 5, where you need to do Imperial Remnants. I'm already going through that sector. That's how I've been handling it, because my Zerg team is fully refreshed. It's healthy enough to take those battles, where if I had depleted their stamina during Sector 4, that would be a little bit more of a nuisance. And putting the stamina load onto Enoch was preferable to me. For the most part, those 2 squads are going to take care of all 3 feats. The speed down might take a little bit of extra work, and if you have them at relics, you probably are going to be able to take care of the 4th feat with all characters surviving fairly easy. With us free-to-play players, and depending on how quickly you're going through Conquest, it's going to be a little bit harder to complete all 4 simultaneously. So for that last squad, I would be recommending you just use your Galactic Republic. And that was something that I came to that realization a little bit late. I would be going for Queen Amidala if you have her. That's just because it's very difficult to lose characters in that battle. It's very forgiving. But unfortunately, unless you have the Omicron on Padawan, Obi-Wan, you don't have a lot of options with the Galactic Republic to work towards speed down. But there is one option, and that is if you were to use a gas squad, which this would be a way to retain some stamina. 5s inflict speed down on his basic ability. So either leaning on gas squad, swapping into Cadme if that's an option, and then of course there's a JMK squad, and you can swap in whichever characters you want as necessary. You can even throw in 5s here to get speed down in these other setups. And had I done this earlier, I think between Sector 2 with the armor shreds where I was using JMK and Sector 4 here, that should have taken care of the global feat, but it was a little late coming to that realization. Next month we're going to be much more efficient about this. Datadisks were largely unchanged. I've been very happy with the set that we've crafted out. We swapped out maybe one of these, we'll get to it, but for the most part this has been just perfect for me. There's been no reason to change anything. Our first option in Sector 4, we grabbed this green Vitality. Everything else was junk, plus Vitality is always helpful, particularly if there was like a Zealous Ambition, which doesn't exist for this set, but it's always one I'm happy to grab. At the first fork we had this blue Critical Tactics that's very tempting. For the right squad, the right setup, that could potentially be a lot of stacking offense with those critical hits. And up top we had Spirited Speed and Defensive Formation, but I already grabbed a defensive formation earlier. I think I grabbed a blue Spirited Speed at some point too. So this one's, it's an easy choice. We grabbed the Critical Tactics. We're probably not going to use it, but it's the best available. At the crossroads, we have an Opportunistic Support and a Spirited Speed. We don't care about either of those. A Weak Point and a Defensive Formation. That Weak Point is interesting. I've skipped some of those earlier in Conquest. I wouldn't mind taking it right now, especially with the set I've crafted, which is very heavy on debuffs. That's potentially a lot of stacking offense. And down below we've got Grey Junk. So here we grab the Weak Point, most synergy already with my existing set. At the next fork we have a Convor's Agility and a Power with Certain Defeat and Critical Tactics. Everything here is just kind of okay. The Certain Defeat I wouldn't mind. Critical Tactics, we just grabbed a blue one so we don't need it. But here I grabbed the Power. I just think it's the one that makes the most sense. I haven't grabbed one yet, and it's always nice to have. And at the end we have an option for Ceresu Form, Guard and Penetrate, Ruthless Swiftness. We do have a green Guard and Penetrate. I do have it equipped. I haven't really felt it, but it's interesting. And in this case, I opted for the upgrade on Guard and Penetrate because Ceresu Form is just going to make it more difficult to build out the set that I have. It doesn't work with what I've built, whereas Guard and Penetrate, I'm just swapping out what's already there. Or I could just take it out all together and put in a couple more like that Weak Point I grabbed earlier to synergize. For our middle boss node, we have Hokey Religions, win without using any Jedi, set the Unaligned Force users in deep rage, defeat an enemy with any Kylo. And for me, that one was a little bit tough because I don't have SLKR. I know most of you guys do, but I've been kind of stubborn about the whole thing. I'll have next week though, but for these purposes, I had to find a different way to solve that one. For Hokey Religions, I just always use Jabba these days because I've got him. I know not all of you may have him. If you don't have Jabba, I'd consider like a General Veers, like an Imperial Trooper, or even like a bad squad would be fairly effective. Use timestamps if you want to get to specific battles. We're just going to play through the footage. I don't think we're going to do any narrating today. I don't think there's much to add to any of these. For get a defeat with any Kylo, we use a Sirjunda squad. Keeps everyone survivable, plus with our disc set weakening up everyone, we just needed to find an opportune time to use one of the Kylos to finish somebody off. And we're just going to play the footage, no narration. Our final boss feats, these are under a Fin resistance lead. These are both easy feats. We have Huyang surviving and win with a full squad of unaligned force users. For unaligned force users, we have Shin Hati for the sector feat along with the Sirjunda squad, Kylo for tanking, Cal for speed down if you don't happen to be done with it at this stage. For Huyang surviving, you could do this under a JML lead. I wanted to try this out with Sortie because I felt like with Finn plus the data disk set that we have, I felt like Sortie was going to be just survivable enough, even though I have a whole bunch of lower gear characters here, or gear 12 plus Huyang at gear 11, but 3 stars. And that turned out to be a completely correct assessment. And that takes care of Sector 4. We'll do Sector 3 up in the corner along with the full Conquest feat overview down below. Thank you for watching. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Be excellent to each other and still plays Galaxy of Heroes.